Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and start here. Um, Quaker ministry practices and culture. Um, what is, kind of Quaker ministry? People ask me, I get around, like even at like the the baseball parents. Well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm a Quaker minister. And they're like, what's that? And so there's some interesting conversations around that and uh, how Quakers perceive and view and understand ministry. I think is very unique and holistic, and I appreciate the approach. The more I'm in this tribe, of Quakers, and usually I like starting off with a quote, an anonymous quote, and see if anyone can guess who said it. The quote, and uh, I'll go ahead and just read it aloud here. The most daring thing is to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured. Um, a fascinating source that this quote came from. It's not, to the best of my knowledge, they are not a Quaker. Does anyone want to take a stab at it? Think American author. And then Nate, since you're here, you can participate as well.
And what?
Nate, I said, since Nate, you're here, you can participate as well. And Nate, you'll have to kind of give me a heads up if there's a chat, someone anything. The author of Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut wrote that, and he wrote that actually from a Palm Sunday sermon he wrote. You don't really think of Kurt Vonnegut as a sermon writer. He wrote a sermon, and this quote is in that sermon. And I think it's just profound. That's such a profound thing. And it leads into the question, how are we creating stable communities? Is that even a goal on our radar? What does that look like? How do we engage that? Um, and as Quakers, how do we engage that? The second uh, couple quotes are a little bit more Quaker specific. There's no hope for a brilliant future. There is no hope for a brilliant future in the Quaker story without a conscious, deliberate, and sustained effort to enlist and to train a ministry related to the peculiar needs of our time. Hi, Mary. Elton Trueblood is the one stating that first quote. This is going to be a quote heavy lecture and kind of back and forth. So just bear with me. Some of them are a little bit wordy, but I want to kind of move us and nudge us towards how are we answering that question? What is there any hope in the future of Quakerism by us? How are we consciously, deliberately, and with a sustained effort, not just trying it? Well, that didn't work, you know, boo-hoo. A sustained effort enlisting to train a ministry related to the peculiar needs of our time. What are, and this is like stirring the idea pot. What are our peculiar needs of this time? We were just talking about one with that movie, screen obsession. Everyone's on their screens. And you go to public spaces and it's a family table. No one's interacting. Everyone's in just glued. That's a peculiar need. How, and there's also a counterpoint is to say, know your work. Like, is that our work? But it certainly, most certainly is a need. And William Penn, oh, feel life in your ministry. Let life be your commission, your wellspring, in treasury and all such occasions, else you well know there can be no begetting of God, since nothing can quicken or make people alive to God, but the life of God. And it must be a ministry in and from life that enlivens any people to God. And oh, there that there were more of such faithful labors in the vineyard of the Lord, not foe the Lord of. And again, just stirring the question of, okay, ministry, what has ministry and our exposure and our experience of ministry been in the past? Where has it fallen on its face, and what has gone well? And so, that's my question here for this session, Quaker ministry. Uh, what are its practices, and what is its culture? And I wanted to talk a little bit more about practice and culture. That picture there is, where were we flying into? That's in Utah yesterday. We were flying over. I was flying from Ohio to Salt Lake City, and I was sitting on the back of the plane, and I looked out the window and I saw that. And that's right where like the Rocky Mountains seem to be beginning, because it was certainly flat where we were. And then I saw this rumpled series of mountains, and I thought, oh, that's too cool. Um, but here's kind of some open share time questions here. What are some of the things that come to mind when you hear the word ministry? Do you have any part or belonging in that? Is that your word, or is that kind of like a word at arm's length, Um, Secondly, what were some examples of maybe a powerful ministry in your own experience, in your own life? What were some times when it worked? Um, and then thirdly, who have been ministers in your life? So who has kind of embodied that? So I thought we could do um, kind of back and forth. Do you want to be a scribe? Sure. Cool. Thanks, Sherman. And Amy, just so you know, and any uh Molly, just so you know, Sherilyn, Mary, and Doug are here sharing as well. Oh, well, you probably see it from that camera over there. Um, so what are some things that come to mind in ministry? You can participate as well.
I pray my soul and magnify the Lord there even though
Yeah, Magnificat.
think that what I'm going to be doing during the day, and just kind of imagining that the inner light.
Yeah.
I think we'll see it as well as because I would be inspired to.
Yeah.
But I want others to see it. So to me, that is the definition of ministry. As a kid, we were taught to hand out tracts and to witness.
Yeah. Yeah. The awkwardness. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to ask that my soul magnify the Lord, now that it's any situation.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, I love that verbiage of praying the Magnificat. Uh, what is that? Luke 2? Mary. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say pray.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. No, that's cool. Other words. Words or intentions in ministry.
So when I think of ministry, I think of it as being very like you know, like a sermon or something, but I believe that in the Quaker tradition, ministry can also be referred to kind of as like somebody's vocation, or is that like?
Yeah.
I know that like, people can be considered to have a ministry towards, or I'm asking, this is actually a question, like a ministry of music or a ministry of, you know, just their, of serving, like if they're serving patients or if they're a teacher, that if you are putting your whole, you know, is that?
Mhm. Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Maybe,
It's hard, yeah, it's hard to say, well, there's a right way and wrong way, you know, to think of ministry. I think it's very expansive and broad. Um, and no, but yeah, I think that absolutely are examples of how ministry can be understood. Um, yeah, throw it on the board.
patient, maybe?
Yeah, vocation. I certainly think of that. Ministry is my vocation. The problem is there's a division then in my life. Well, that's what I do at my job, but then there's Mark's life. Like, well, now wait a minute, it's not a unified thing. So, you know, approaching ministry in a more holistic, in a more holistic way is, I think, a goal to look towards. Examples of powerful ministries that affected you or ministers? Anything in particular? Well, we can always, you know, feel free to come back to that and um,
So, you know, the laying on hands is very powerful.
mhm,
So people would come forward, you know, and they would lay their hands on you. And
mhm.
we weren't into the healing kind of thing. But I know for myself, you know, if I have my hand on someone's shoulder and I listen to your heart or your lungs, pay for them.
Mhm.
You know, I know that this is gonna be wrong. But people don't, and very often, I deal with troubled kids very often, they'll just sort of, you know.
Yeah.
They just sort of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the laying on of hands, I think is important.
Yeah. That's the culture that I grew up in. That a, a spiritual culture where praying over people, laying on of hands was not an awkward thing. It was a common thing. Yeah. Anointing with oil. And you know, you're like responding to like the dictates of certain New Testament scriptures by doing that. So I'm just kind of a following through, of carrying through over of that tradition. I think some Quakers could benefit from that because we're too uh up kind of uptight, you know, when it comes to those type of things. Very sterile. We're sterilized. It's like,
Too intellectual.
huh?
Too intellectual.
Too intellectual. Too, yeah, too, you know, too self-sufficient, you know. And it's almost like the pendulum has swung too far to get away from certain aspects of evangelicalism or holiness. You swing the other way, but you go too far to where you're out of touch with the power and you're just acting on your own power. And when you act on, I know when I act on my own power, I'm disconnected with people. I'm too egotistical. I'm not close to people when I'm too much on my own. It is, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're supposed to be kind of a self-made person, autonomous in everything. Bootstraps, yeah, yep, yep. Um, I think that, yeah, there have been like, I think powerful ministers in my life have been my grandparents, my parents. They're probably the most powerful people, and they never preached a sermon at me or anything like that, but they embodied a ministry of prayer, a ministry of practice, life practice and holiness, those type of things. So,
Pastor, when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, that I just absolutely adored, and he just he did behind us. He didn't preach the hell out of
mm,
because she said this sweet or anything. He was a real blessing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. He got it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Teachers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, past ministers, parents, grandparents, um, and then, yeah, it's just kind of like a kind of throng of like people that have helped me along the way that I benefited from. Um, they're powerful. Doug, did you have anything?
Oh, lots.
I know you have lots.
I was thinking about, so my father played piano by ear. And, some of his friends got together and got him into a piano teacher. And at the end of each session, he'd say, well, so you want me to play this song for you next week? Could you run through it once for me so I can hear how it goes? So it took, you know, he could play it after she had just run through it. That didn't work, because he probably gave up, but he was mostly in the Stephen Foster songs, but every time he sat down at the piano, the first song he would play was the Old Rugged Cross.
Yeah.
And he would close each session with the Old Rugged Cross. And my mother and father got divorced when I was 4. And I was at summer camp, maybe when I was 12, and they played the Old Rugged Cross. And I came back to my Presbyterian church and said, I ran into this song that it's not in our hymnal. They gave me a little hymnal with the billing in there. So I went home to my mother and I said, well, what is this? And so she explained to me the story. I had no remembrance, of course, but it just burned into my head that this was the song. Anyway, I thought that was really cool.
Oh. Wow.
Other things, I don't know. A youth pastor I had at the Presbyterian church. I come in one Saturday and he says, Doug, did you realize Mary was a whore? What? Well, she wasn't married. She got pregnant. That didn't come till later. He was off. So he was fun.
He's trying to kind of shake you up through,
Yeah. Well, and to make it real, I guess. So for me, ministry is simply trying to align my life with what I understand God wants, which is simply where we all are joyful together.
Yeah.
And when you step out of that, then people get hurt and they get angry and they get, mean. And so, if we could all just get into that groove of being clear about what we all need and attend to that, then life is beautiful. Life is great. That to me is what ministry is all about. It's the way you live your life.
don't get too far ahead of my lesson here now.
Oh.
No, you'll see where we
Yeah.
come to that. I'm fascinated with words of, okay, where the heck did ministry come from? Like its etymology, like the word ministry. It's from the Latin mini, lesser, and the term has the same form as the Latin magister or magus or greater, meaning master or teacher. So ministry appears in the Latin Vulgate translation. So Matthew 20 is translated, 26 is translated, he who would be great, which is in Latin maior, among you, he who is maior among you, let him be your minister. Translating the underlying Greek diakonos, servant, as minister. So diakonos is also slave in the Greek. So there's a correlation between slave, servant, minister, servant. Ministry entered the Christian vocabulary referring to the Christian vocation to serve. And ministry refers to the work and office of one who ministers. So just interesting little background on that. The work or vocation of a minister or religion, the work or the spiritual work or service of any Christian or group of Christians. This was according to Oxford, especially evangelism. That's where I got that definition. But we see this word kind of popping up a number of ways. So ministry and scripture as well. Seeing scripture as a collection of ministers and ministry accounts that both have successes and failures. We've retained both of them, where people get it right and people get it wrong, and we've just retained it. So it's a book about ministry through the lives of people, Abram and Sarai, Moses and Aaron, Samuel, Saul, David, the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. They didn't want it. Pick someone else. You got it wrong. Not me, Jonah. And Christ and Christianity, Mary, in the Magnificat, her interaction. She was the first Christian minister. Mary and Joseph. Jesus called to ministry and disciples, Mary and women in the Bible, in the New Testament, Paul and John and others. So we see a kind of this universality and the ministry of the Christian spirit or the spirit of Christ. We see this opening up in Scripture. And that picture there is a Da Vinci of St. John the Baptist. And many art historians have said that is a depiction of Da Vinci's lover there in that as the model. But you see kind of John the Baptist pointing, it's just like this kind of face and him pointing up. That is John the Baptist in the Louvre. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I was drawn to that a little bit more than the Mona Lisa. When I saw the Mona Lisa, I was like, oh, I can say I saw it now with my eyes. I've seen it. But I liked that one. Yeah, so seeing scripture then as a compendium of successes and failures with ministry, as far as that calling goes. Quakers talk about concern, carrying a concern. So there's these little Quakerisms that I wanted to draw off of, and I'm drawing a lot of this from this book on living with a concern for gospel ministry by Brian Drayton. And he's an amazing Quaker writer and scholar. And I appreciate this idea that he puts forth in this book.
His last name again?
Drayton, Drayton, Brian Drayton. And he writes, we have no time but this present time to bear witness to the power of the light to recreate the human heart and thus transform our doing, our seeing, and our speaking. The ways Quakerism were discovered and inhabited so that we might live freely and passionately, faithful to the spirit that moves according to its own imperatives. The path to that freedom and that radical availability, I love that term, radical availability, is one of practice, Mary, a little bit like what you were talking about. That's your practice. But also of learning, and we need all the help we can get from our community, as well as from the essential leader the light of Christ experienced within. So carrying a concern is not just, and a concern for ministry is not just like this an individualistic um, carrying, but it's something that's shared with the meeting. And to start seeing ministry as, oh, this isn't just me, this is the group of us carrying this life and this light along. So on carrying a concern, Quaker use of the word concern reflects our understanding about how God works through humans. It is a key element of Quaker spirituality by which the Spirit engages with the world and creation, mercy, testimony, and action. And in the matrix of prayer, or in some other way, a matter comes before your mind which feels important, urgent, or pre-pressing. A concern is more than a subject matter, more than an area of interest or of passion, because it is accompanied sooner or later by a sense of duty. Something is required and at the Lord's hand. Concerns come in all shapes and sizes, durations and levels of disturbance. They may be acute or chronic. A concern may take the form of a long-term commitment or a short-term single action to be accomplished. So I love this unpacking of, okay, this just went from uh uh ministry being only the realm of the professionals to anyone can have this then. So here's this kind of this broadening view of ministry and carrying concerns. And I don't think this shouldn't be anything new. I think we all know this and carry this, but it's a unique way of talking about it. Uh, a concern for the ministry is a calling to be I italicized this, a calling to be intentionally available to put our experience of the divine light in life at the disposal of others. If we were to get particular, it's a calling to be intentionally available for other people. That's a concern. That's how we could define that. For their refreshment and encouragement, it brings a commitment to inward watchfulness so that we grow in faithfulness and grow in our ability to serve. You'll notice that a lot of my sermons end with, what's going on in the inside of you? They'll end on a query note of how are you being moved? Where is light shining in your, well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm pushing and challenging the meeting as best as I can towards being awakened to and acting on concerns. It's not just being a Reedwood fan or being a Mark fan or a Jesus fan or a Buddha fan. Those things, those are great. But it's how are we being faithful to the concerns that the Spirit is laying on us? Are we awakened to that, or are we asleep? Because churches and meetings, we fall into a trance. We don't. We're in a trance of just numbness and insensitivity, and we don't know it. And so, yeah, like that's kind of that's the approach oftentimes whenever I preach or bring a message. I want people to be a little bit more aware and active in dealing with what's been laid on the heart. Pennington, the end of the ministry is not only to gather, but also to preserve and build up what is gathered, even to perfection. And so I wanted to like, this is still very kind of theoretical and captured in words, and I start going numb when people start doing that to me. So here's a couple of concerns that were brought. These are 2 weeks old concerns. So we'll keep them anonymous. There's a concern of, this is verbatim. I want to address this concern to the elders and to you, Mark. Seems to me that with our rising profile in Portland, we may be drawing attention about what we are about with new community initiatives. The concern was we need to have a plan on how will we react if ICE appears in our building, on our property. We have an obligation to care for our Latino friends who worship with us and have their own programs at Reedwood. So that's the concern. He also said, and not to be, I mean, this was simply the concern. What are we going to do? Not only if ICE shows up, what are we going to do if a shooter shows up? Have we had that conversation? Because that's the world we live in. And on the latter of the two, yes, we have talked about that. But the practice of a concern that has risen among friends. And he's saying, what are we doing about this? Okay.
That thought in the end church, which meets
Yeah.
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Hired a security guard.
Yeah.
Who stays at the door.
Mhm.
It's called the Nth.
Enth, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. And
On Tuesday nights, they meet in Ong Chapel. They are the group that brought in Cornell West literally a couple years ago this month. Or was that last year? That was 1 year ago. And Cornell West had his own security.
Yeah.
Plain clothes. Well, they were all like dressed to the T's. But so that was a local friend holding a concern. Second one is from a traveling minute from Exeter monthly meeting 2 weeks ago. Dan Pell played here, but since we didn't know him from Adam, he came to me and said, here's this. Here's my traveling minute. I said, oh, okay. And it reads, our friend Dan Pell has laid before Exeter monthly meeting in Pennsylvania a concern to travel among friends during second and third months, 2026. So it's traditional to speak of the months of the year 1 through 12, starting in January, ending in December, by numbers, not by name. So as to not, back in the 1600s, so as to not have the names of pagan gods or rites on your lips. So now it's just like, I don't think anyone really believes that, but it's just it's just a little, again, Quakerism, I call it. The same thing with days of the week. So I did put up here, so this would be third month. Today is Wednesday, so this would be fourth day. Third month, fourth day, 2026. Little Quakerism. So that's why they're talking this way. Talking about second and third months, 2026, talking about February and March. Dan Pell, he expects to visit the following meetings, various meetings, and then the traveling minute goes on to say, we can affirm Dan has enriched our meeting at Exeter with his music ministry. We have also known his participation in the life of the meeting. As far as we are aware, he is free of obligations that would hinder his travel. We ask that you receive him tenderly, and we also ask that you extend such spiritual care, counsel, and oversight as you see fit. On his return, we will ask Dan to share with Exeter Meeting what he has learned and how he might have been met along the way, that the light may be enlarged among us. And then it was signed by 4 elders there at Exeter Meeting. And Johann and Judy Maurer, they were here along with you, Doug, and myself. And I said, normally the person that writes this minute is Dwight, the clerk. And I said, Dwight, I want to respond to this minute. It's appropriate, but I know you weren't here. Can Johan and Judy do it? And he said, oh yeah, let's do it. I'll do that. So one less thing for Dwight to do. But again, concern, people being faithful to what's been laid on them. So I was in Ohio, and this is where me and Megan had our second date in New Philadelphia, the Quaker Theater. And we saw Napoleon Dynamite together, and I held Megan's hand. And she asked for a third date. That's how I knew she was the one. If she could sit through that weird ass movie. So carrying a concern, a collaborative approach to ministry. Again, this isn't like Quakers aren't just like rogue ministers, but we see this as a co-op, both above and beside. So how does a concern come to us? I think it's something that is received. This is more Mark than Drayton. This is just what I think and how I've experienced. It's something received, but from outside of oneself, or is in deep harmony and attunement with a conviction and spirit of something. It's something that came outside of us, a co-op with the divine type opportunity. Time duration varies. I know that when I was feeling a concern for being a vocational ministry, I wrestled with that quite a while. It wasn't an immediate yes. It was a repeated no for a long time. And I always am tender to that saying of Jesus about the two, who did the will of his dad, the one that said yes and then never showed up, or the one that said no but thought better of it and then showed up later. I'm like, well, I feel like the latter one. So concerns can be fought and denied, but sometimes they just keep coming back to you and they can be developed. And I would say it's rarely immediate. It's rarely Paul of Tarsus being struck off the horse and hearing the voice of Saul, Saul, why do you kick up against the pricks, and don't you know you're hurting me, that type of thing. It's rarely that. It can be that, and we think we want that, but we really don't. I think I would probably go crazy. So it takes time, and to just be aware of that, of what's being put on my heart every time I'm still or every time I'm in worship. This thing keeps coming up. Something that proceeds from, it's also something pretty personal oftentimes. It proceeds from your life experience and your deep mind and true self, even though it can be informed by your false self. So your true and your false self can kind of work in harmony with one another, and you feel life in what you're being given. There's life in it. And then, of course, there's Quaker support. There's the support of the meeting and a care committee. Oftentimes have you ever been a part of a care committee? Could you give just a quick summary of what that was like? What was your concern, and what would a care committee do for you? Or at least what they were supposed to do.
No one's both been a recipient of care and then also care. And the idea is to, and there's clearness, and then there's also some. So at least, if it's clearness committee and you're trying to.
Someone's wrestling with a concern.
Then I believe that people, the idea instead of people to ask you questions and help you, discern.
Yeah.
And then for a support committee, I think it's not just discernment, but also providing a group of people who provide support to a person who's going through a challenge.
No, that's again, kind of the group effort, the co-oping nature of concern and ministry. Oh, and release or ongoing clearness committee or anchor committee work is that last one. How do you know when the concern is ended? And people can help you, and it's a group effort. So you're less alone, you're partnering with people.
Or it's really created when this concern.
You would, let's see, standard practice would be, it would probably come to, it might start with me. And then I would say, well, let's work together and let's select a couple of people you're comfortable with. And if you want a clearness committee, if you're asking, I'm just not sure. I could use some help, like a sounding wall. And the clearance committee is intentionally not telling you what to do. You decide that. But we're just asking clarifying questions. I've done that before, and I think I got it wrong. I got a clearance committee, and I think I went a direction I wasn't supposed to go. And because it hurt. And my decision hurt. I thought,
The clearness committee or.
no, it hurt me. It hurt me personally.
I mean, but what I'm saying is. The decision you made as a result of working with a clearness committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I went against the clearness committee. And one time. And there's life beyond and mercy and you heal and stuff, but oh boy, I don't want to do that again. That was something.
So would someone go to like Dwight or one of the elders and say, I'm having an issue?
Yeah.
I would like.
It wouldn't have, it could just be, since we're all ministers, it really could be the person. I would pick people that can tell you no, not just people that can't say no. So that's how you know that you're being legitimate. These are people that are objective, and that if I'm lying to myself or I'm misreading something, they will tell me that. And they're for me, they love me, they're not strangers of like, who's this person, So, yeah, I think there's certain criteria at work to help you
through
figure
the
out.
hierarchy of the administration. I mean, last week we
You
got.
can, but you don't have to.
Just
Yeah. So like right now, there could be someone going through a clearness committee that I would have absolutely no clue that that's going on, even though I'm the released minister. I don't have to know what's going on. So I don't have to be, in the know of everything that's going on in the meeting. So, and I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure there's been clearness committees and developed concerns outside of my knowledge.
Mark, can I just ask? I'm sorry, I'm jumping in late here.
An anchor committee, I would say an anchor committee is almost like a support ministry group.
Yeah.
It's a synonymous term.
5 years support, but it sounds to me like care committee, so what I was thinking support or maybe, but also like. A lot of times people have been on committees and been like, is this clearness or support? So.
So is that more physical? I mean, someone is in the hospital. They need groceries brought in, they need somebody to pay something. It's more physical
Yeah.
rather than clearness is more decision making.
I think an anchor committee or support committee is more of an ongoing thing specifically to help prayerfully and through friendship and presence support a person through a work, through a specific concern that they're carrying. As far as just loving care and acts of service to a need, I don't think that that would be the role of an anchor or support committee. This is a little bit more specific to a person and a concern that they've asked people to come along, to come alongside them as they journey through carrying a concern and faithfulness of addressing that concern. An example of a concern.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, for Dan, it was traveling around the country and sharing his music.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sure the 4 people that signed the minute, that was probably in his anchor committee.
Okay,
So what that looked like as far as how they were his anchor committee. Prayerful. Probably contact, how you doing? Do you have enough money to get home? You know, those type of things.
okay.
Do you know of any, some other examples of concerns that have been carried and that have been supported through an anchor?
Yeah, I mean, it was, mine was through my work, because I'm an immigration lawyer. So, on one occasion, I needed, son, do you need help? Just to deal with, work, and so there's my example.
Jaja asked, what types of questions you bring to the care committee? Just
Jaja, we'll get to that here in a minute. Were you done with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good example, right?
So your concern was working with clients. Go.
My concern was just the, people were just aware of my work and how it was affecting me, as a, human so they just said, they just asked if I needed a support committee but I think it would be an anchor committee is the way it would have been.
So
Just
to
try
manage stress of what we've gone through.
Or just to have people to,
I'd like
to ask questions, help deal with what that was like, I guess. So, I don't know if that's a good example,
No, I think that's, I think that's a very practical one. The other one, example, Dan was a question of, I think his concern was traveling ministry as well as traveling ministry with a platform for sharing his gift. And that was laid before the meeting and support by a group.
To the other question though about like if somebody was in hospital and needed help, would that typically be a committee or would that just be more of like a care and
I
counsel?
would say that would probably fall to pastoral care and concern. And based on how long that concern lasted, we've had that a number of times where people were hospitalized or their spouse had a major change in health. So we were committed to, meal train, type of ministry. But we never really called that a concern. That was never voiced as a concern. It was just more practical. If someone needs food, you meet that need.
So the overall definition is care committee, and then under that is clearness and anchor.
I think they're loosely associated. They don't have to fall under any sort of hierarchical way. But there are tools to help that operation, to help that along. Those concerns along. Those tools are clearness committees, anchor committees, or support committees. Committee work. So whenever you hear Quakers joking about everyone's on a committee or committee work, that's like, it's usually that type of stuff. Jaja, to respond to your question, that's a good question. I know that there are like general and basic rules of what not to ask people. You really want to just keep the questions open-ended for clearness committees. So there is a format that you follow to bring a concern, or a concern can be a problem or an unclarity or an ambiguity to a group of people in private. You lay it out, and then people basically unpack what they're hearing and repeat and answer, hearing back, saying back what they think the person is saying, and then asking clarifying questions for the inquirer to ask and respond. But it certainly tries to guard against pushing people or influencing people to answer the question in a certain way. You want the person who's bringing the concern to answer the question themselves, but it's just with help. So seeking clearness. Does that help, Jaja?
Can you hear me?
I see that you're talking, Jaja. I don't see
I know.
you.
Oh, wow. Okay. But you can't hear me. You can't hear me.
I can hear.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. So are these concerns like, I'm thinking of moving to another state?
Okay.
Or are these concerns, I'm having an issue with another parishioner?
Would it be something like, I'm thinking about moving to another state, or something like I have an issue or a problem or issue?
I think it could be both. It could be any of those things.
Okay. So wide,
I think it could be any of those things, especially if it's a real nugget that your usual resources aren't helping you resolve. And you're like, okay, I need a clearness committee for this. I need help.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
John Calvi, one of the ways this sense or spiritual growth and depth grows is that we notice what has happened in the recent past. What have patterns been? What has changed that we notice when we look back in retrospect? Retrospect being a very important part of the study. What has already taken place that informs us about the next part of the pattern, John Calvi. I pulled this quote because I thought it was interesting. This is just a way of reading your life. It's an awareness of letting your life speak. Letting your life speak is not just sticking it to the person or always having the right answer or putting someone in their place. The term "let your life speak" is is a self-reflective way of objectively stepping outside of yourself and saying, oh, I know Mark. And oh, I've seen this behavior before, and I could even know what's coming on, based on, what experiences in the past. It's just having a nice and healthy objective knowledge about yourself and your own spiritual journey. I appreciated Calvi, his words there, and he would say that that's finding your flow, finding your way into your flow. I bring that up because that's how concerns are arrived at. Oftentimes concerns are arrived at knowing yourself and knowing maybe what God is and spirit are putting a finger on. Deep knowledge, a knowledge of an EQ, not just about others, an EQ about yourself is important. I had this video. I'm not going to show a video because we're out of time. I had this video about from Joe Campbell, and he talks about following your bliss. How when you follow your bliss, that's how you know you're in the right spot, and how that's an important feature of I think in this lecture in ministry concern, that is a feature or a facet of finding your bliss and being faithful to it. And spirit will lead us to that place of finding our bliss. So while Campbell may not necessarily be speaking from a strictly Christian perspective, he is putting his finger right on track with what a lot of Quaker writers and spirituality is getting at. So I appreciated that that video there. I'll see if I can't maybe somehow share it some way. I would like for you guys to see it.
YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yep. YouTube, Joseph Campbell, Find Your Bliss, and it's on video there. And then I also had a second video, a Quaker Speak video of women in ministry, and our very own beloved Carol Spencer is front and center on it. It's like, oh, that's Carol Spencer. So, women in ministry and Joseph Campbell, Following Your Bliss on YouTube. So group sharing. I love this quote. It's a familiar one. The place God calls you calls you to is a place where your deep gladness, or to use Campbell's term, bliss, and the world's deep hunger meet. Frederick Buechner. Am I saying that right? Buechner? I appreciate that statement, so ministry is an answer, not just of I need something to do, so I look religious, to I'm literally living outside of my life. It's an existential and holistic way of being. Ministry, that is to be a servant and an attentive responder to the emotions of love that open to us, and we are in and out of that always. We're in it for a little bit, and dear God, look at me, I'm doing pretty good, and then we call up, then we're out of it, and we feel, well, God, where are you? I feel estranged from, where'd you go? The dark night happens, and that's natural. We're all supposed to do that. That all happens to us. And if that's happening, you're doing it right. If you're in and out of that flow, it's a waxing and waning. And that is kind of the nature of ministry in itself. It creates opportunity. It creates an environment where you can't do it yourself. So if everything you're doing it's always me, it's always myself, then you're going to end up outside of the life. But if you find yourself increasingly gathering with people and connecting deeply with people on a soul level, then you're doing it right. And it's this cohesive way of being that Quakers have always tried. It's hard to put in words. It's almost like it's almost there, but then it's a little bit beyond me, you know. And Quakers we just bear witness to it. We can't define it because as soon as you define it, that's not it. So we're always bearing witness to what's just outside of our grasp. So, and I would say that's what Jesus is talking about. That's what Paul is talking about. That's what Christianity ultimately is talking about. The thing that's always outside of your grasp, or as the mystics in medieval times would say, that over yonder. That's how they would describe God, the life of God, that over yonder, and that we're always moving towards. That movement, not alone, but with others, is ministry. Um, so, um, just some queries here. I know I don't want to offend too much on our time. I want to honor our time. What concerns have you carried? And maybe just answer this on your own. Have you carried and responded to in your past? This is nothing new. We've all been doing this, but this is just kind of a refocusing on it. How have we carried these in the past? What might be a more present concern you're carrying and that you are in discernment about? Have you communicated this to anyone? Is the next question. Answer on your own. And I did want to do one thing that I need to be in a slideshow. I'm gonna do a little bit of uh okay, the next one. I did want to end with a poem, just like a good sermon should do. Oh me, oh life, by Walt Whitman, not Walt Whitman me, but this poem. To conclude, oh me, oh life, of the question of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, of myself forever reproaching myself, for who more foolish than I, and who more faithless, of eyes that vainly crave the light of the objects mean, and of the struggle ever renewed, of the poor results of all, of the plodding and sordid crowds I see around me, of the empty and useless years of the rest, with the rest me intertwine. The question, oh me, so sad recurring, what good amidst these? Oh me, oh life. My one English teacher said he couldn't stand Whitman because he gushes. He's so gushy. But I love how this concludes. This is the anxiety and the estrangement of the human life. That's what he's talking about. I feel estranged from everything. I feel out of joint with myself. Life, why is it like this? Answer. How do I respond to that mess? Answer, that you are here, that life exists, and identity, that the powerful play goes on, and that you may contribute a verse. That's the answer. What's the verse? Well, that's a concern. That's ministry. It's continuing a verse to the powerful play that goes on, that is an answer to the shit of life. Sorry about the expletive there, but it's true. That's what Whitman is so eloquently talking about. And that's what we experience. And to even today, the frustrations we carry today. That. How do I answer that? I respond to the present moment. I respond to the author of life. I respond to spirit, and that I'm a part of this somehow in some way, and that I may contribute a verse. So I end like Robin Williams ended in the Dead Poets, or in that scene in the Dead Poet Society. What will your verse be? What will your verse be in this time of your life right now? And that then is ministry, being a servant. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this.